Hey guys, it's Kamen again. This is going to be my review for Ant-Man and the Wasp. And without getting into anything, what Ant-Man and the Wasp is essentially about is basically we focus back on Scott Lang, and if you guys remember at the end of Civil War, he was in fact arrested for that whole airport battle, and he has been on house arrest for the past 2 years, and basically he has like 3 days left, and you know, he's getting ready to finally get like his ankle bracelet off and go back into the real world. However, he is called in by Hank Pym and Hope, who he has not talked to for a few years now, and basically he is recruited for a very crucial mission, and that's really all I'm going to say. So Ant-Man and the Wasp in general, I was very excited for this movie. I mean, Marvel has just been on such a high streak lately, but especially coming off the heels of Infinity War, I was really interested in seeing what they were going to explore next year, because obviously, you know, if you haven't seen Infinity War, Ant-Man's not in it. He's not in that movie, and we knew that he was off doing something else. This film basically would play catch-up in telling us what he's really been doing. And also because I really enjoyed the first Ant-Man. I think that's a very well done solo film that loosely ties into the MCU, but it presents this really good narrative with a really great Paul Rudd performance, and also a very good heist movie. And it was very different for MCU too. This was an ex-convict after all, and I was very interested in seeing what they were going to do here. And in regards to Ant-Man and the Wasp, while this is a very different movie from the sequel, this is still a very fun movie. It's the definition of just a really fun summer palate cleanser that I think is the perfect successor to Avengers Infinity War overall. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And obviously, that was one of the things I was most looking forward to. Marvel has just been so on point when it comes to their cast lately. Even Black Panther, which on a rewatch, I am not as big as a fan of that film as I said I was. I said it was like a masterpiece, and now I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's amazing or anything, but I do really enjoy it. That film still had a brilliant cast, and this film really does keep that streak going. The cast here is pretty universally great. Let's first talk about Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, who is just as good as he was in the first movie. However, he's in a bit of a different spot in this one. He's much more cheerful and positive about himself because everything's going well for him. You know, he's no longer that ex-convict. And I've heard most people say that they kind of blanderized the character and they made him just an idiot. And I would completely disagree with that. I think Lang is just someone who, he's really on this, you know, high in his life, and he's just having a really, great time. You know, he's closer with his family now. He's closer with his ex-wife now. Hell, he's closer with his ex-wife's husband now. So, yeah, they have a really good bond overall. And I just really did love seeing the character of Scott Lang. He's got some really great, fun moments throughout the movie. He definitely has some of the standout scenes, but he also has some really nice emotional moments that I definitely really did enjoy. I think Paul Rudd is still really great as his character, and he still does a fantastic job in this film. But equally as good is Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne. Now, a lot of people said she's a standout, and honestly, I think they're both on equal footing. I think she did a really great job here. We definitely do get more into her family history a little more. If you've seen the first one, you know what I'm talking about in regards to Janet Van Dyne, and I really did like exploring that. I thought the bonding between these two was very interesting because they have had sort of a strained relationship since the first one, and this film is kind of them trying to, you know, repair it a little bit, and I really did enjoy seeing that. I think these two work very well together. I definitely want to see them again in another film, and I think definitely it was a great idea to pair these two because they work so well off each other. Some of the best moments in the movie are just their banter throughout the film, and I definitely really enjoyed it. Someone else, though, I've really got to credit, though, is Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, who, he was great in the first one, but honestly, I thought he was even better in this movie. He's so determined in this film, and I'm not going to explain why, but this mission he has, he is so set on completing it, and you just see how rewarding of an experience this really is for him, and really the change he does go through in this movie. We get a lot more into his backstory. It's not that we didn't in the first film, because of course we knew about all the prototypes and things like that, and how he used to be Ant-Man, but this film, he's going through a pretty big shift, and I really love where they took the character. I think these three work so well together, and Michael Douglas, once again, is just phenomenal in this movie. I really love what he had to do here, and Honestly, I do think he's one of the best castings in any of these MCU movies. I just can't get over how great his performance is, and I will continue to relish about it until, you know, the series is truly over, because he really is fantastic here. And then, of course, someone I'm sure a lot of people want me to talk about is Michael Peña back as Luis, who I think is personally one of the funniest characters in any of these Marvel films, and he's still great here. They give him a lot more to do, actually. He's running this, like, security company along with, Scott and the two other sidekicks that I can't think of their names right now, but, you know, they're really good here as well. But they really do give him a lot more to do. He has this one really great gag in the film involving this sort of drug that Walton, Goggins, and his group has, and I really enjoyed that. And yes, he does tell a very lengthy story, but it doesn't get to the point where it gets annoying. Like, I think they could have easily ruined that joke by using it a lot, but thankfully they know when to use it, and they definitely go very well with him. I think he's just such a fun character to watch, and he's one of those characters where I always just, he could say like the smallest thing and it'd get a laugh out of me. That's how great he really is in both of these films, and I think honestly he might have been even funnier here. I really loved him in this movie. And then everyone else in the film is also really great. Hannah John Kamen, I really want to talk about her because a lot of people were worried after Ready Player One. They didn't think that she gave a really good performance. I personally thought that she was good there, but here I really liked her as the character of the Ghost. I thought she did a really good job. Not necessarily menacing, but you can just see how similar to Pym, she's just very determined to get this thing done that she needs to get done, and I think she did a really good job. The character we'll get to a little bit later, but I think she did a really good job. Walton Goggins as well is very good here. Abby Ryder Fortson, really want to talk about her because I enjoyed her in the first movie, but here I think this film has cemented her as the next great child actress. I know I said in Forever My Girl, but she truly has something special about her. Any scene between her and Rudd is one of the standout scenes of the film. These two just work so well together. They honestly might be my favorite bond in the entire film. I could watch a whole movie of just these two bonding. It's so adorable to watch, but at the same time, Cassie is not your typical sort of kid character. She's someone who is actually smart, and she is one of the only people that knows about him being Ant-Man. And how rare does that happen where the kid knows but the parents don't? Like, we don't really see that in a superhero movie a lot. Usually the kid is the last person to find out, but no, she already knows that he's Ant-Man, so they have a much deeper connection in this movie, and I just really love seeing that. I think she did a really great job here. Michelle Pfeiffer's very good. Laurence Fishburne I really enjoyed. Really the entire cast here I think honestly did a very good job, and you know, if I talked about anyone else, this video would be way too long, and like I said, I think everyone did a really great job here. Now let's get to the directing and the writing, because the directing in this film was not something I was too concerned about. Of course, it is directed by Peyton Reed once again, and here's the thing. Peyton Reed, I know a lot of people were a little bit worried because of the fact that sometimes the director will come back and he'll try to replicate the success of the first film, and it just won't work as well. Here, that's not what he does at all. He is directing the movie, but it does feel like a very different film. Ant-Man and the Wasp is less of a movie about Ant-Man and more of just another adventure for these characters. And I think it does work as that. Not every sequel needs to be this huge, bombastic, epic movie. I mean, we already got that with Infinity War. It makes sense for this to be a lot smaller scale. And because of that, there's a lot more comedy in this movie. Not that there was in the first film, because there was. But here, they really rev up the comedy, and I think it's even funnier than it was in the first film. I really do love the humor here. He has that down very well. But he also does a very good job with the nice, quieter character moments, and I thought those two were very nicely blended together. I really did enjoy that, and I thought his directing overall was very good here. Without getting into the plot too much, this movie definitely does feel a little bit more urgent than the first one. I think they did a really good job with that. Now, in terms of the writing, like I said, while this movie is relatively small scale, I do think they actually did a pretty good job with hiding the plot to this movie. You know, you really don't know what's actually going on here, what the mission actually is, and if I were to get into it, I'd kind of be spoiling the entire movie. It's really this nice surprise that I just kind of want you guys to experience for yourself, because I did not know what they were going to do, and I really loved what they ended up doing. I thought it was a very interesting story. It does involve the quantum realm, and yes, they do explore that a little bit more, but it's much more than just let's explore the quantum realm. It's something that is much more personal, especially for Hope, and I really love where they ended up going with it. The story here, yes, it's a lot smaller scale, but because of that, it gives a lot more time for these characters to interact and for these characters to grow as individuals. Specifically that of, like I said, Hope and Pim. They really do go through a lot in this movie, and I definitely really did enjoy that. I thought that the story was very well done. And I thought that there would be, you know, the comedy was even more consistent here. I was laughing just as much, if not more, than I was in the first movie. There's rarely a joke that doesn't hit, and I will say right now, I know I've said this with many films, but I do truly think this is one of Marvel's funniest films. A lot of the jokes really hit very hard for me, and I really did enjoy that. And in terms of how Ant-Man and the Wasp ends up going, because a lot of people might be worried that they're going to force this down our throats, it actually happens in a very organic way. You know, if you saw the end of the first movie, you already know that she is the Wasp, and they're kind of fighting alongside each other, but it didn't necessarily go the way. Where they ended up going with it, I was honestly really surprised, and I thought the tie-in to Civil War was really well done, because they could have just, you know, overkilled it, and have Civil War references every few seconds, and I thought they had a really nice balance where they don't reference it too much, but it obviously is still in the same universe, and especially for Ant-Man, you know, Civil War is a direct cause of everything that happens in this movie. So, you know, him getting on house arrest and things like that, I thought they did a really good job with, and, I really did enjoy that story overall, and because of the fact that he is kind of limited in this movie, we're given a lot more time to explore a lot of his relationship. Like I said, specifically that with him and his daughter. Any scene between these two, I absolutely loved. I really did love the scenes between them. I thought they were, honestly, they have this really nice, adorable relationship, and yeah, that scene where she asked him about Ant-Man, it's a very good scene, and it is foreshadowing something that I'm very interested in seeing what they do end up doing in the next film. If you guys don't know, they're planning on recasting this character in Avengers 4, and considering where she leaves off in the next movie, I think I know what they're going to do, and I'm really excited to see if they end up going there, because I like this character even more than I did in the first one. I think they did a really good job with establishing her. That being said, though, other than the characters that we already know, the new characters, on the other hand, didn't really do it for me. The only character that I really felt was that well developed was Laurence Fishburne. I thought he actually played this really good character who, he's like this associate to Pym. At first he's like this ally, but he has this other thing going on that I'm not really going to get into, but I really did like where his character ended up going, and I'm glad to see he is in the MCU. I think he fits much better in this universe than he ever did in the Batman v Superman one. I don't even remember the character he played in that movie. Like, I feel like here he fits a lot better, and I definitely do want them to flesh him out a bit more. In terms of the villains, though, that's a different story, because recently Marvel has been on a huge streak when it comes to villains. I think as early as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, they've been on a streak. I mean, we've had Ego, we've had Hela, we've had Tombs, and of course we had Thanos. And obviously, we're not going to get another Thanos. Like, that's just such a rarity, and it's something that, you know, is kind of foreign, just a really good, complex Marvel villain. It's not something we're used to. Ghost and Walton Goggins' character are definitely not even close. These are some of the weaker villains we've seen in a while, and let me just say, they're set up in a way where they're not necessarily villains, but they're more sort of just inconveniences to these characters. Like, occasionally Ghost will get in their way, even though she is connected to the main narrative, and they do a very good job with setting up Ghost's character at first. Like, I really did enjoy her backstory. The problem is, they really give her this huge exposition dump, and you're supposed to care about her from this dump, and it's just so much to sink in at once, and it becomes really kind of overkill after a while. Like, you really are like, okay, I understand what's going on here, but they're just explaining everything, and I think it would have been a much wiser choice if they maybe would have shown these flashbacks throughout the film. Like, imagine how much better it would have been if we just saw this random scene of this little girl and her family, and we didn't know how it tied into the main narrative, and then once we get into her backstory, then it could have been really effective, but they didn't really decide to go that route. Once this character is introduced, we see her, and then they pretty much tell her story, and I thought it was honestly really rushed. Like, it's literally a minute of exposition, and I just did not feel like it was enough for the character. I really felt we could have done more with her, because the setup is actually really good. I really do like the idea with this character. She just never really went anywhere that interesting. I always kind of felt like she was just there, and again, it's not Hannah John Kamen that's the problem. I think Hannah John Kamen did do a very admirable job in this movie. I really do want to reiterate that. I just felt that the writing for her was honestly really weak, and they could have done a lot more with her. But that's nothing compared to Walton Goggins' character, who has one of the blandest roles I have seen in any MCU film in a while. I mean, this guy he's playing is just the definition of just a corporate piece of shit. He's after the lab, and basically, at first they want him to help them or whatever, to, you know, fight, to help them in this mission, and he's kind of like an ally to them, but then he realizes, oh, maybe I can get some stock out of this, and maybe it costs a lot of money, and you can kind of see where he's going. He's just this guy who's set on money, and he keeps getting in their way, and I just did not care about this character, and it's unfortunate because I love Walton Goggins. I think he's one of the best character actors working today, and here, I don't really know why he's in this movie. He's trying to do, like, the Boyd Crowder voice again, but it's a lesser version of that character. You know, Boyd Crowder doesn't have shit on, you know, this character doesn't have shit on Boyd Crowder. Boyd Crowder is so much more complex, and I could do a whole video just analyzing that character, who I personally think is one of the best side characters in any TV show that we've had in the past decade. I absolutely love that character, but I truly don't think he's going to get a better role in that, and especially as of late, he's been really wasted. Between this and Tomb Raider, Goggins is not really doing that well in terms of finding really good roles, and the thing is, his role in this movie, it's not like you can cut it out, because he does play a pretty integral role into the story. Same with Ghost, but not in a way where it feels that prominent. It always feels disconnected. Like, I kept forgetting his character was around. He'd pop up and I'd be like, oh yeah, this character's still out there. Like, it didn't really work. They should have had Ghost as the main focus and maybe have Goggins play a smaller role than he ended up doing, because, like I said, he does contribute a lot to this film, and I just felt like we could have gotten a lot more from him, and they just didn't really do that, unfortunately. So, the other part of the movie that you're also supposed to feel very invested in is, like I said, Scott and the feds. These guys are constantly after him. They think of Scott as still this criminal, and it just isn't that strong of a narrative because it's very repetitive. There's so many times in this movie where there's like a close call where you think, holy shit, they're gonna find him, and they end up not finding him. Like, Scott makes it just in time, and after a while, it's not that it became stale, because it was always fun. I do think that Randall Park did do the best job that he could in this role, but there just wasn't really a lot to it. Like, it should feel a lot more urgent, and it just simply doesn't. It's just a lot more fun. Like, I never really felt that into what was going on. I never really felt like it was anything as severe as the movie really wants me to. So, yeah, I do think that in terms of antagonists, the film was definitely a little bit weak on that front. The rest of the movie, though, it is very solid. I think the writing is still very well done, and I definitely really did enjoy it. I think it's, you know, it's one of the most solid MCU screenplays we could get. In terms of cinematography, it's still really great here. There are so many great things they do with the quantum realm, and especially when it comes to the de-age technology here. I truly don't know how they do it, but there's an opening scene in this movie. It shows a young version of Janet Van Dyne and a young version of Hank. You've already seen the version of him. When you see Janet Van Dyne, it's scary. Like, it's literally scary. I don't know how we have evolved this much, but this is why people are complaining about Rogue One. Like, people need to understand, this is why we were complaining about it, because you look at something like Ant-Man and the Wasp and see how real it feels, and how it literally looks like a younger version of that actor, and then you see the very half-assed job in Rogue One and how CGI it felt. Nothing about this here feels like CGI. It feels so real. It feels like these are themselves. It's honestly really scary thinking about it, but it's so well done. I am immensely impressed with what they're able to do with this technology, and it's making me very excited. I heard they're Captain Marvel, they're gonna have a de-aged version of Nick Fury throughout the whole movie, and I'm down for that, honestly. Seeing what they were able to do here, I think that that is definitely something that they are, you know, mastered in, and I have really no fears when it comes to that. I think it's just, it's incredible what they're able to do there, but again, there's so many great action scenes, and the suits and things like that just work very well here. The film does explore the quantum realm a lot more, and also what's, you know, about it, also the suits and things like that, and I thought the cinematography was very good here. It's a little bit blander than some of Marvel's other films, like something like Thor Ragnarok or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. No, this does not hold a candle to that, but I do still think it's very good. The score, I personally really loved. I thought the score was very well done. It's not Infinity War level or anything, which none of this movie is, but I do think that the score is well done, and it did rev up the tension and things like that, especially in some of the more, like, smaller emotional moments. I thought the score was very good, and I really enjoyed it. And the editing. The movie is much more fast-paced than the first one, and I think it works for the most part. Like I said, it's a fairly low-key movie. There really isn't a lot to get into. That is until the mid-credits scene in this movie, which, without spoiling anything, while the movie, like I said, is very loosely connected to Infinity War, the mid-credits scene changes that entirely. I mean, where we end up going here, holy shit. I really don't know what's going to happen now. I know I said that after Infinity War, but I truly don't know what's going to happen, and it just, it enrages me that we have to wait till May to see how this really is resolved. I'm hoping somehow we get this earlier, but it's definitely not going to happen. But again, just the way it all played out was very surprising. I knew they had to tie it in somehow, but I definitely not expect them to go in the route that I did, and I'm very excited to see how that does play out. Overall, guys, Ant-Man and the Wasp is just a very entertaining movie. It's nothing amazing. It's definitely not Infinity War level, but coming off the heels of it, I think this is what we needed. We just needed a really fun, silly movie that reminds us of, you know, why Marvel is so great at it. It's got some really great character arcs. It has a plot that I really was not expecting, and I don't really want to get into too much because, trust me, it is better if you experience it for yourself. Again, I don't really know where they're going to go from here in terms of the mid-credit scene, but as a film, it's very well done. It does have some weak antagonists and some weak things about it. The story is fairly low scale. There just isn't really a lot to it. But at the same time, it does a really good job with what it's doing, and it's a damn well, it's damn good. Like, the story in general, it's very well done, and I think they definitely need to get the most mileage out of it they possibly could. There's a lot of interesting things moving forward that I'm interested in seeing how they do explore. Overall, this is definitely a very entertaining Marvel film that I do think continues Marvel's streak. It's the first MCU movie in a while that I don't think is fantastic, but it still is a very well done film. And I am going to give Ant-Man and the Wasp overall a B. But either way, guys, in my review of Ant-Man and the Wasp, what you guys thought of this overall, love your thoughts. And like I said, definitely really enjoyed this one for sure. But that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.